Welcome to Comedy from the Middle of Nowhere. I'm Scott Ecker, the youngest host in late night television. Today is a very special episode. We're interviewing local broadcasting legend Doug Hamilton, a fine actor and has a lot more experience than I can even fathom, as you can see in this unprofessional interview on my end. But Doug Hamilton is a great guy and a really nice guy. I hope you enjoy. So when I was putting together the guest list for this show, I was talking with Carrie Winterstein, who's letting us use the space at Theater B, and she said you have to get Doug Hamilton.
Oh, I'm not either.
Yeah, so... and I don't know you too well personally, or personally at all, but I've seen you here at Theater B before in Midsummer Night's Dream and God of Carnage you were great in. But I remember what I saw Midsummer with my dad, and he saw your name in the program, and he was, oh, Doug Hamilton, I knew you from the news, so how long have you been around in Fargo performing?
Well, we moved to Fargo Moorhead when I was 12 in 1962.
Okay.
So it's been a while. I graduated from Moorhead High. I went to Moorhead State for my undergraduate degree, at the University of Minnesota for my graduate degree.
Yeah.
I've been working here professionally since 1975. Before that, I was an actor in the Twin Cities.
Okay.
That's where I got my acting card. I worked with the Guthrie for a while.
Okay.
And I taught at the U of M for a short time, taught acting there. But I've been back here since 75, and for the most part of those past almost 40 years, I've been in broadcasting. I did teach full-time at the Moorhead State in the late 70s, and from 97 until 2011, I was a member of the President's Cabinet. I handled marketing and advertising and the Alumni Foundation for some time, but basically with the administration of Minnesota State.
Okay.
And since then, I should mention,
Yes,
I actually have another gig. I retired at the end of June 2011, and I traveled a bit, and then my phone rang about a year later, and they were looking for somebody to replace the host for a show on the afternoon of the Republic's radio network. At that time it was called Here and Now it's called Main Street, and that's what I do.
All right, and can you explain that show a bit?
It's a public affairs show. I host it, and I work with a producer. I worked with TV 35 years ago, so we're on the same wavelength. I work with Ashley Thornburg, who's a contributing producer as well. So it's a small group, but hey, it's an hour of radio. It's fun to do.
Yeah. So, what's it like working in radio? You clearly have a voice for radio.
Well, I have a voice for acting too.
Well, I didn't guess.
No,
let's not talk about your face, but we'll talk about the voice here.
Radio is something I've been involved with most of my life. My older brother, I have an older brother named King, Roger King. King is what we call him. And he started in radio back when I would have been in around 13 or 14.
Okay.
And so I tagged along with him, and when I went to Moorhead State, I worked for KMSC, a campus radio station, which then was in the basement of Ballard Hall. I was Captain Midnight. I was on the air from midnight to 3 in the morning. I did all kinds of goofy stuff that I enjoyed. No one was ever hearing it, but I thoroughly enjoyed doing it. And I really had gotten out of it. I was a speech theater major, and I was reasonably successful as an undergraduate and graduate student, so I was doing something else until the phone rang again. I was up in Los Angeles staying with some friends of mine, and they were looking for an anchor. And, well, okay, I'll look into that. And I grew up, I should mention, it's not totally out of the blue. I did grow up in a newspaper family. I've been immersed in the journalism milieu, newspaper business.
And that's local paper?
That was the Becker County Record in Detroit Lakes, owned by Foreign Communications.
Yeah.
Well, when I was a kid in DL, when I was growing up, it's kind of an interesting time because there were two newspapers in town that competed. They had different editorial positions. The son of the owner of the other paper was one of my best friends. And when there was a controversy about whether we should put fluoride in our water, I pulled the wagon with the flyers that said yes. He pulled the wagon with the flyers that said no. But those times are gone.
Well, Facebook kind of does that, where, some friends say one thing, the other friend says the other, I suppose.
That's true, and the word gets out one way or the other.
Yeah.
On social media, I'm a proponent of it. I use it.
Yeah. So, yeah, speaking of social media, has that changed the radio business at all? Or, yeah.
I think so. For one thing, for the first time in my life, I have an archive.
Okay.
I mean, we podcast everything.
Mhm.
So, it used to be in the old days, you'd have to put together a reel. And
Yeah.
I just tell them, well, go online, listen to me. If you like it, fine. If you don't, fine.
And can that be found on iTunes Main Street or?
I think we're off iTunes. We also have our own platform, prairiepublic.org.
Yeah.
So you can access it in different ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's exciting too, that there is, like, we're intending this for local public access, but also online, YouTube, share it on Facebook, so it's nice that, you have the opportunity to share something in different ways, reach people different ways.
This digital world we live in now makes it so easy to do, and
Yeah.
I have to say, it's going to, I think, transform the way we deal with history, because we're going to actually have first-person accounts that you can see the person's face and you can hear what they're sounding like, and
You gotta be careful what you do now. It's,
we are.
Well, I hope you are. I'm still working on that. So you've done broadcasting not just on the radio, but on
Most of
television.
television,
Okay.
actually. I spent bulk of that time as an anchor, a news director, assignment editor, film,
Mhm.
learned on 60mm film, and
Wow.
we moved into videotape very quickly after I started. So I've worked with every format and know I've got 2-inch reels, that is 2-inch wide videotape, 1-inch reels, pneumatic cassettes, all formats that have never been used, haven't been used in years now, so my history is kind of moldering on a shelf.
Yeah.
That's why I'm happy for podcasts.
Yeah. So, you got your equity card, you were in the cities. What did you perform at the Guthrie?
Well, I was brought to the cities when I was a senior at Morehead State. There were a number of audition opportunities presented to me, and I was encouraged to take them, and I did. And one of them was the what's called the URTA audition, University Resident Theater audition, and those are held like in New York, Chicago, I think Denver occasionally, and LA. And I went to the one in Chicago, and I was very successful. I had 16 callbacks.
Wow.
And so I was thinking, well, I'm pretty hot commodity. Which one of these options should I take? Because they're all pitching you their program and how much of a scholarship they'll give you and all that kind of thing. And there was one guy who was there who took me aside and he said, look, we're not participating in URTA this year because we have a special program.
Okay.
And I want you to seriously consider auditioning for our program. You keep your options open here, but we're doing these auditions in about a month, and they'll be at the Guthrie Theater. Michael Lyman, the artistic director, will make those decisions, and I think you should audition. So I did, and I was picked by the artistic director of the Guthrie Theater to go through the University of Minnesota's Master of Fine Arts program, which articulated at that time with the Guthrie Theater.
Okay.
The program ended with a practicum experience. You were literally a member of the Guthrie Company.
Wow.
And so that's how I got my card. I was in lots of shows at U of M, including one that went to the University, the Kennedy Center American Theater Festival.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
We played at the Kennedy Center in a highly controversial play that really shook the town up, and we got all these great reviews, and we won the medal.
What was the play?
It was called 365 Days.
Okay.
It was directed by H. Wesley Barr, a North Dakota native.
Okay.
Who'd been quite a phenomenal professor at the University of Minnesota. He specialized in music theater, but in this particular case, what we did was take a book by a doctor by the name of Ronald Glasser called 365 Days. And you need to know that this took place in 1972, the height of the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
365 days is the term that you would be sent to Vietnam. It was a one-year tour of duty.
Yeah.
If you were drafted, you went to Vietnam for 1 year, 365 days. And the book is about that ordeal.
Yeah.
Dr. Glasser was a physician in the burn ward at the Kashina Hospital in Japan, where they get a lot of Vietnam patients from the battlefield. And he heard lots of stories, and he wrote them down. So we took the book, the cast, and H. Wesley Barr, and we made a play of it.
Okay.
And there were, maybe 8, 10 people. We played multiple roles, and it was performance. The only time I've ever heard this was, well, there was a reviewer for the Minneapolis Star Tribune, whose name unfortunately now escapes me because it should be branded in my brain. But he was asked when he retired, and this was about 10 or 15 years ago, what the most memorable moment he'd ever experienced in the theater. And, you know, most people would think, well, he probably went to the opening night of Oklahoma or something.
Yeah.
No, he said, I have a difficult time explaining this to people, but the most memorable time I had was a November night in 1971, when I went to a little stage on the University of Minnesota, Shevlin Arena Theater, seats a couple hundred people, and I saw this show called 365 Days.
Yeah.
And he said, when the show was over, it was like you could hear a pin drop.
Mm-hmm.
People just silently got up, walked out, and he said, what I realized then was that I was shattered and so were they. And I had never forgotten it, he said. So that his name was Vaughn.
Okay.
And glad I remembered his name because he remembered us.
Yeah, I mean, you're part of the most memorable thing.
Well, I had a great role in it, and he referenced it, so
Mhm.
I felt good about that.
Yeah, I mean, most actors, I think, are, you know, happy to be recognized as, how do I know you? So that, you know.
Well, we all have ego.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
And I think, you know, the fact that you get on stage and, you know, present yourself in front of people indicates you got a reasonably healthy one.
Yes, oh, absolutely. So you were in God of Carnage a year ago, and I did see that, but I also read your blog post about what it was like to play younger.
Mhm.
You point out that, you know, when you're in your 20s, it's kind of a badge of honor to get to play older, but it was a different experience doing the opposite.
Right, I never thought I'd have to be doing that.
Yeah.
Because typically, well, if you watch a movie these days, everybody's cast to type. I mean,
Yeah.
The director is looking for exactly
Mhm.
what he sees in his head, or the writer sees.
Yeah.
But on stage, we get a little more,
Mhm.
we get to act,
Yes.
you know, as opposed to do some version of ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's what intrigued me about the role, because I had to be somebody who was, you know, 15,
Yeah.
20 years younger than I am. Mind you, I didn't think that was a terrible stretch. It was just a different direction.
Mhm. Well, and yeah, Carrie Winterstein was also on the show. We talked about Carnage a lot. It was a great script, and then the four of you together is this
Oh, that
great
was a
show.
script, yeah.
Hmm.
No question. And that's the first thing I look at in a play, is how good is it? You know,
Yeah.
because you're going to spend a lot of time on it.
Mhm.
You want to make sure it's worthwhile.
Yeah. And so you've done work with Theater B locally, Seafarer too, right?
Seafarer was the first show I did here, and Jennifer Tuttle directed
Mhm.
that, and I got to play a really terrific role. Mr. Lockhart, who is literally, in the context of the play, the devil.
Uh-huh.
And people don't know that until later on in the play, and I just had a gas doing that role. But first of all, it's Irish, I love doing the dialect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's great. I was in Dance at Lunas earlier this year. That's Northern Irish, so it's a fun dialect. So the show, we talk a lot about, you know, Fargo entertainment, but you've seen a different side of it than I've gotten to see. So how would you say it's changed, like local?
It's become more sophisticated,
Okay.
and there's more of it.
Yeah.
When I was an undergraduate at Morehead State, the only theater that was going on in the summer was Straw Hat.
Okay.
And a smaller version of that at NDSU called the Country Theater.
Oh yeah.
And they had a summer program too. But there was not much going on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, since then, you had Trollwood,
Yeah.
Newsbury, you've got Fargo Morehead Music Theater, you've got Theater B, you've got the Tin Roof Theater, you've got FMCT getting better organized
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
putting on a better product. So I think that it's just night and day.
Yeah.
Plus, you've got a very vigorous film program at Minnesota State
Oh,
University.
absolutely. Where
That gives opportunities to the actors who are in those programs and other actors in town too. I mean, you can put together a reel by the time you're graduating from college, and that's a huge advantage.
this show was shot by some FM or some MSUM film grads, so that's
I go back to Ted Larson, the guy who envisioned that program and gave me lots of opportunities. He passed away in 2000, but he would be thrilled with what Tom Brandon and Kai Christensen have done with it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're great. And then, I mean, the Fargo Film Festival, Fargo Theaters.
That was originally Ted's idea. He passed away just months before it first happened.
Okay.
And so he was the inspiration for it. And then Rusty Castleton. And Rusty passed away.
Yeah.
We lost a couple of very special people.
But it's great that they, left enough legacies and enough for people to grow from. So
And I'll never forget it.
yeah, it's good. So, how would you compare Fargo to other places you've been?
Well, the other places I've been for any length of time would be the Twin Cities, LA, not a particularly fun place to live.
No.
And here,
Yeah.
it's not, I'm not that worldly. I love to travel, but I haven't sat down too long in one place except for here. Say, Fargo is sort of like always talk about the mini Twin Cities here in Fargo.
Yeah.
There are some things about these two communities, though they're very different in size, that are somewhat similar.
Yeah.
There's a cultural step. But there's also, I think, this thriving arts environment. And I tell you, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have imagined it. I can imagine it now, and I'm just tickled by it, because I think it makes the place so much better, so much more interesting. And, people come to see a show, and it affects them. They talk about it, and that changes conversations. It really does make a difference.
We're dealing with certain topics. And
Well, and Theater B has done some of those topics. They did, Proposition 8 stuff.
Yes.
They did the re-entry stuff about people coming back from the Middle East conflicts and trying to reintegrate into society. So those are important things for the community to wrestle with, and it's always neat, I think, when a theater can help people deal with it.
Absolutely. So, that's the draw. Fargo for you?
I think it's convenient. I mean, Los Angeles is a coping contest from sun up to sundown. You have to really want to do a certain kind of job, I think, to live in an environment like that, where so much of your day is just spent trying to get from A to B. The Twin Cities is a little like that for me.
Yeah.
Although I think it's got a very vibrant arts environment.
Oh, absolutely.
Environment. But this is just an easy place to live. I mean, a traffic jam here is a 15-minute delay. It's not your day.
No, it's affordable, and people
And,
seem to be nice for the most part.
and people kind of know each other.
Yeah.
There's a familiarity. You're from Fargo. Hey, I'm from Fargo.
Yeah.
And I run into these people everywhere, so I think Fargo's kind of catching on.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've had a lot of experience in broadcasting. How is this going so far? You've done interviews like this. Is
Well,
this
it's going fine.
It's going fine? All right. This is my first day doing something like this. So.
Just keep the questions coming.
Okay, good. Yeah, all right.
Because that's what I do too. So.
Yeah, hope we get better table eventually. Caterer isn't here yet, so we're still working some of those kinks out. But
I'm fine with it. Table's a table.
Yeah,
Bowl's the cup.
So, any other parting thoughts? Anything you want to plug or discuss, deal with?
One thing that is a bit of a concern for me, and I've talked to the people in this theater and other theaters about it too, is that one of the complications that I have, that some people have, is that I have a credit card. And, that's a ticket to audition, some kinds of shows, some kind of environments. But it's also, because it is a pretty strict union, a limitation. Some shows you can't audition for because you can't get a contract. You can't work without a contract if you're an equity member. And if you ever work without a contract and they find out you're not an equity member.
Mhm.
So it's kind of a catch-22.
Yeah.
And because there isn't per se an equity professional theater
Mhm.
in Fargo Moorhead, that means that every time I perform, I need to have a special arrangement with equity.
Yeah.
And that's a hassle for everybody,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
So I think it gets in the way of being cast, it gets in the way of, you know, doing some shows that I really like to do.
Yeah.
But that's fine,
Mhm.
you know.
Mhm. It is cool when I see your name in a program. It has that asterisk and, in cooperation with equity member and that.
Well, one time I was thinking, I wonder how many equity members there are in North Dakota.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's a handful,
Mhm.
because there's no work.
Yeah.
So
So that's
I do have to
something
keep,
Yeah.
working at something else.
Yeah, absolutely. But it would be nice to move in that direction more.
Well, you cannot have an equity card and be an absolutely spectacular actor, be a far better actor than an equity actor. It's not necessarily
Mhm.
a firm determinant of quality.
Yeah.
It is one of those things that the union wants to maintain a certain level of quality, so they'll make that determination. But I think realistically speaking, the card doesn't make you great.
No.
But the card does make you a professional. And professionals behave in a certain way,
Yeah.
I think. And people can behave very professionally without a card. I'm not suggesting that either. I'm just saying that when you're at that menu, then the lines with the pocket, when you're supposed to be there,
Yeah.
what your responsibilities are, and what everybody else's responsibilities are, and it's if you're building a house, and what the carpenter, the plumber, the electricians are all certified, good to do their jobs. Everybody feels better about that.
Yeah.
But that said, Fargo Moorhead isn't there yet, and I hope at some point in what's left in my lifetime, it does get there.
Yeah.
Because smaller communities, Lanesboro, Minnesota,
Mhm.
has an equity house.
Okay.
It's a tiny town on the Wood River, 50, 60 miles from Rochester. You have to look for it. But it's got a flourishing seasonal theater that has some equity positions on it called the Conduit Theater.
Okay.
And seems to be doing great.
But even just locally, if there was more opportunities for paid work, had discussions with a few people about how, it would be nice if you could pursue that here.
Yeah, equity wages are not real high.
No.
You'll never get rich with an
Yeah.
equity card. In some cases, they'd be, $150, $200 a week.
Mhm.
So it's fairly, like modest.
Mhm.
But even that is out of the reach of a lot of theaters because,
Yeah.
they're small.
Uh-huh.
And you've got to get people in them, they've got to support it.
Yeah.
So it's a gamble, it's a calculated risk anytime you extend a contract to somebody.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming. I'm happy to finally get to talk to you after seeing you in so many things and hearing so much about you.
Well, thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. My pleasure.
That was Doug Hamilton. Doug is currently the host of Main Street on Prairie Public Radio, so to make sure to check that out. And also make sure to check out all of our other episodes of Comedy from the Middle of Nowhere. I'm Scott Ecker, and I hope you learned something, and if not, I hope you had fun.